This show came about because I got a call from Kingman, who now lives in California. She said, Patrick, I heard that you've got a wonderful gallery dedicated to Nebraska artists and art. I said, well, gosh, California, that's a ways. Who are you? And she is the daughter of Eugene Kingman. Well, I heard a lot about Eugene Kingman because I was an apprentice for Waldron, and Eugene Kingman and Waldron were best friends. Waldron introduced me to Bill Kowalski. That's another story for another time. But I said, yeah, we'd be glad to help. I've had this dream because I knew each of these guys were what we call plein air painters. And plein air painting, it was a real deal. It's when you're out in the field with your palette, you're getting that color off your palette, you're putting it on a board. It's a sketch, if you will, me as a photographer. Gosh, why don't they just go out and do a photograph? Part of that is a lens will compress things. Your eye does it as an artist. And you'll see examples of that. The classic one is here. This was a plein air painting that Kingman did one afternoon. And he liked the composition so well that he took it back to his studio and then did what he would consider more of a master's work. And you'll see glimpses of that in different places. Tonight, it's all about Kingman because we have his family here. This is what I call the Kingman clan, and I have to be careful. Okay. Waldron did sing, so I'm introducing Nixie because she introduced me to all this wonderful work by Kingman. Much of it is for sale. For those of you who have collections of Nebraska artists, take a look. It won't beat these prices. It's a good value. If you like the piece, buy it, and you'll have something that will help Nebraska artists go through the next time and the next time.
Thank you, Patrick. Oh, I'm just absolutely thrilled, beyond thrilled to be here. And with my husband,
I'm not nervous.
And my son, and son next week home. I'm not into this. Anyway, I was trying to use my husband's far right and my son's left. And we just after going and watching a huge heartfelt tour for Patrick for doing this show. It's an honor to be here.
You guys came right on.
I look around. I just want to say huge heartfelt thanks to Patrick and Ruby. The staff, Sarah and Susie, they just one of us was put together for the show, and this is absolutely amazing. I'm just never dreamed of like this. And food, wine, and specialty and all along. I just want to say I grew up here. I went to Duncan Elementary and Central High School, and love my friends. I love coming back here to see them. A lot of them moved out, so some of my friends are not here tonight. I just really wanted to say that I treasure friendships from Omaha. There's something very special about being here. I've been to a lot of places, and this is just wonderful to be here. I also want to say that I miss my sister here. She wanted to come. She was in Santa Fe, but she's had a medical issue and could not be here. But her book over there is called Kingman, Nebraska. She worked very hard on that book, so if you want to see some more information about Kingman, that's a wonderful book as well. And then I'm going to end by saying that for some of you might wonder how I got my name Nixie. And that does come from my father. He really wanted me to learn to mix paints. And when I was a little kid, he set me on the floor and did finger paints when I was a baby. And it kind of evolved after that. And then later on, he built a little easel for me, and we went out in the fields. But I just never really got on painting. I wasn't born with his gift. He really was born with an incredible gift for painting. I didn't use it instead of nothing. I mean, kept people in that Irish music, but I just love his artwork. I love with him. It's just been fantastic. I want to say one more thing about my sister. We love going out in the fields when he had his easel and palette and paintbrush. He loved to just paint. It was very spontaneous. My mother would make fried chicken, and suddenly just go out and depend on the weather, if there were tornado warnings or whatever, we could venture out there. But we just had a lovely time. And then my sister and I, when we were very young, around in the fields. He loved the corn fields, and we would just play hide and seek for a while and do other things. And it was just, wonderful life. I feel so blessed. And I feel like their spirits are here with us tonight. Thank you. Enjoy.
Before I introduce our next guest, I just want to say thanks to all those who support Gallery 1516, those people who are here tonight who loaned work for this exhibition. Thank you. It helps make this work and space absolutely safe. Our next guest is Maurine, Waldron, and she bought the Kingman house in South Dundee. She'll fill you in on some of those details, but she got involved. Kingman was first a muralist, and she got involved with a project to save that mural. It's on display now at the W. Dale Clark Library. Worth a visit sometime when you're in the downtown area.
Thank you, Pat. Is this loud enough? Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening. Today we're going to talk about Eugene Kingman, a landscape artist, an adopted Nebraskan, a muralist, and a man who could do everything. He was born in Rhode Island in 1909, and all of his formal education was in New England. Well, we'll see how he was transformed into an artist of the West and the Southwest. Young Gene was always interested in how art and science could work together, and he had a passion for drawing and painting. While he was in high school, he took classes near his home at the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design. He also spent a year after high school painting at Harvard's Fall Art Museum. In the late 1920s, he loaded up his art supplies and he went to Yale, where he majored in geology. While he was in college one summer, his father and uncle packed up their families and traveled west on a journey to see the country. This was the rough and tumble days of the early automobile, and the Kingmans visited 10 national parks that summer. For Gene Kingman, it was a life-changing trip. He was moved by everything he saw. The plains, the west, the southwest, the northwest, and he wanted to paint it all. From that trip on, Gene went west to paint as often as he could, but he was still in college. He returned to Yale and submitted several of the paintings from that summer of travel to a competition sponsored nationwide by the National Park Service. He won the competition. As a college junior, he was commissioned by Horace M. Albright, the legendary conservationist and second director of the National Park Service, to paint seas in 7 of the national parks. The 21-year-old geology student had his painting sent to an exhibition in Paris in 1931. His fascination with the natural world might have been influenced by his brother-in-law, Wallace Atwood, who was a nationally known geologist and the director of the Chicago Academy of Sciences. In 1934, Kingman, by then working on a fine arts degree at Yale, had a chance to go with Wally Atwood on a National Geographic assignment. The two men were assigned to work on an article to interpret through geology, geography, and painting how Crater Lake and the Yosemite Valley developed. This and the next several paintings will show the exact same scene, pictured several million years apart. It's a remarkable series of paintings as the two imagine how the Earth developed.
Kingman said they took one scene and went back eons in research. Gene said, while he wrote the story, and I painted the pictures as we visualized them for each period. The National Geographic may have been hesitant to have a 25-year-old artist paint the story, but the magazine must have been delighted with the results. And it was a wonderful experience for Kingman, who saw art and science working together. Kingman's 13 paintings were in the National Geographic in March of 1937. Kingman received his fine arts degree from Yale, specializing in mural painting, and began teaching mural painting and lithography at the Rhode Island School of Design. But he was very busy. He won a major commission from the United States Treasury Art Project to create murals at 3 post offices. Funded by the New Deal Artist Program, it was a way to create art in public buildings by promising artists. The murals were painted in Maryland, Wyoming, and Rhode Island. All 3 murals still hang in those post offices. As he developed as an artist, Gene Kingman had also become a pioneer in Western American art history. He studied the artists and their styles of painting, and America's West was first recorded in the 1800s by artists like Carl Bodmer and Albert Bierstadt. Bierstadt had devoted his life to painting what Kingman called Bierstadt's massive beauty of the Western landscape. But in the 1930s and 40s, a new group of American painters called the Regionalists developed, including Grant Wood and Kingman's good friend, Thomas Hart Benton. Kingman, too, was considered a regionalist. Americans were no longer pioneers and explorers. Regionalism was about the simpler, settled life. These are paintings that invite warmth rather than awe. Regionalists were painting stories of their own country that were less grand and more intimate. They were giving us images of their own Midwest, small towns and rural scenes. And as the docents at Jocelyn all know, Thomas Hart Benton did not originally paint that second farmer back there. He painted a farmer running away from the hailstorm, but Thomas Hart Benton took great pride in being a farmer, and he knew his way around the Missouri mule, which is what was used in the fields. But he looked at that afterwards and said, no self-respecting farmer would leave an animal in a field in a storm like that. So he added the second farmer. These paintings were less grand and more intimate, and giving us looks at their small Midwestern town. Kingman told his daughter that he and Tom Benton laughed about the way the arts community always wanted to categorize paintings and artists. I just paint what I like, he said. Let's see the difference between the early Western painters and the regionalist style. When Bierstadt painted in the Sierra Nevada, the colors are subtle, and it's a distant perspective, so we are almost humbled by the scale of the mountains. When Kingman painted the mountains, the color was less muted and more intimate. We're closer to it. The scale is smaller, like the regionalists. Now let's go back to Kingman's post-college life in the 1930s. He was teaching, traveling, and painting, and in 1938, Eugene Kingman visited Mesa Verde National Park. He got a tour of the park from a beautiful park ranger named Elizabeth Young. Betty was a museum assistant and an anthropologist with a master's degree. They were married in 1939, and a few days later, Gene and Betty started new jobs together at the Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Gene as the first director, and Betty as an assistant director. Kingman was given this beautiful building and asked to create an art museum. And he began looking at the experience of the museum visitor, adding programs to attract people, like art classes, tours for the public and for school children. And he began to develop new and innovative ideas in museum exhibits and interpretive designs. It was another turning point in his life. In just 3 years, the Philbrook had become a popular cultural center in the Tulsa community. But World War II had started, and in 1942, Kingman joined the Army. He was assigned to Washington, D.C., and there, his unusual combination of skills in geology, map-making, art, and exhibit design made him the perfect choice for a critical role as Chief of Presentations for the Map Division of the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. 5 years later, it was reorganized and renamed the Central Intelligence Agency. When he got to the OSS, Gene would have joined dozens of other Yale alumni who were working at the OSS at the time. Kingman was responsible for the production of maps and graphics that were vital for intelligence, and his work was used by the Army, Navy, State Department, Treasury, and the Office of War Intelligence. Another renowned Yale graduate working with the OSS was Richard Eads Harrison, one of the most prominent map makers this country has ever had. During World War II, maps were a lifeline of information for everyone involved. For everyone, as people talk about the latest military campaign and where troops might be. Harrison was a photographer on the staff of Fortune magazine, creating maps for top magazines and critical government agencies. He and Kingman probably met when Harrison was a geographic consultant for the OSS. What made Harrison so important was the way he drew maps. Harrison's map showed the world as a pilot might have seen them looking down. When the New York Times wrote about Harrison, they noted what they called his distinctive hill shading. It creates a page that appears three-dimensional. It helped him to make military maps to train pilots to understand regions that had not yet been photographed by air. And it helped Americans to get a better perspective of geography around the world, and why a president might have considered sending troops to Iceland. After World War II, Eugene Kingman and Richard Eads Harrison came together again to work on a very large map for the New York Times. In 1946, World War II had ended, and Kingman had two wonderful post-war opportunities. One was an invitation to become the second director of Omaha's Jocelyn Memorial, as it was called. He accepted. The second was when Arthur Hayes Sulzberger, publisher of the New York Times, invited Eugene Kingman and Richard Eads Harrison to create a mural for the lobby of the New York Times headquarters. Harrison sketched out the original map, and Kingman painted the mural. So when Kingman began working at Jocelyn in 1946, he also took some space in the galleries to paint the mural. This 7-foot by 21-foot mural took a couple of years to come together. In 1948, Kingman took it to New York and installed it in the lobby. What Arthur Sulzberger wanted for this post-war mural was a big view of our world as it might have been seen from space. We can't imagine the number of people who saw this painting. People coming to the paper for interviews, meetings with the editorial board, famous authors, diplomats, newsmakers, and all of those who worked for the New York Times. They broadcast it every day. This was created 11 years before the first satellite went into space. Before we knew what the Earth really looked like from above. But Kingman, with his unique background, painted a world for us that is incredibly accurate. And Sulzberger asked him to include on the mural a line of poetry. Every day is a fresh beginning. Every morn is the world made new. He wanted something inspiring for his staff and visitors. Something that, as they gazed at this remarkable view of the world, encouraged them that today really is a fresh start. The mural hung in the lobby of the New York Times for more than 40 years and was a familiar part of the landscape of the building and of New York City. But over the years, the painting suffered from exposure to constant cigarette and cigar smoke and the passage of time. In the late 1980s, during the remodeling, the mural was taken down, and for more than 25 years, this painting was rolled up in storage. This photo was taken in 2006, when Times executives, as they did from time to time, unrolled it to check the condition. In 2014, a group of women from Omaha, including Julie Cobb, Julie Riley, and Lynn Wallen Ziegenbein, got in touch with Kingman's two daughters and worked with the New York Times to return the mural back to Omaha. The Times donated the mural to the Jocelyn Castle Trust, the wonderful cultural center in Omaha, and it arrived in May of 2014. Over the next 2 years, more than 100 donors contributed, and the mural was restored at the Ford Conservation Center by Kenneth Bay, who is here tonight somewhere, who is the, there he is, who's the head of Kenneth knew that his biggest challenge would be smoke and grime. You can see clearly where it has already been cleared. There's vibrant blues and greens on the left, and the browns and grays are on the right. So it took him a long time, and he did an excellent job of restoring the mural. Then we wanted a permanent spot for it. We wanted a place that didn't charge admission, in a building with long public hours, and most importantly, in a location that had a 21-foot-long empty space. There aren't many galleries with that. That was hard to find. But in June of 2016, the restored mural was hung in the atrium of the main branch of the Omaha Public Library downtown, just inside the front door. I think Eugene Kingman would be elated to think of his New York Times mural back in the city where he created it. Paul Brumman, the first director of the Jocelyn Memorial, wanted to retire. So Kingman moved with his family to Omaha and became the second director of the museum. He would go on to be the longest-serving director Jocelyn has ever had. When Jocelyn opened in 1931, art museums often had artifacts as well as art. Eugene Kingman had a major talent for display and exhibits, along with a creative energy and ideas for making Jocelyn a cultural center. One of his successors at Jocelyn, the former director Graham Beale, wrote that Kingman was a painter of considerable skill and an expert in Western American art history. He said that Kingman pictured Jocelyn as the Smithsonian of Omaha, a full-blown center for the arts and sciences. Beale writes that King created exhibits of history and culture in the region and set up period rooms that were well in advance of its time. One exhibit, called Life on the Prairie, drew national attention and an invitation from the Smithsonian asking him to consult on Smithsonian exhibits, something he did for many years. From the moment he arrived in Nebraska, Kingman fell head over heels in love with everything about Nebraska. With all that he was doing in the community, Kingman also was a prolific painter. He developed a knack for painting Nebraska cornfields, and he loved what he called the distinctive character of Nebraska. But his painting time was limited, as Mixie mentioned earlier, so his working radius was close to home. He painted dozens of eastern Nebraska scenes over the years, and weekend picnics would take the family to farms out beyond the western edge of Omaha. One of his favorite spots was the Davis Farm, way out past the edge of town on 120th Street. The 220-acre Davis Farm is gone now, and in its place are stores, office buildings, and the Miracle Hills Golf Course. This painting now hangs in the fireplace in the living room of the governor's mansion in Lincoln. One of his favorite painting places outside of Omaha was the intersection of Blondo and 132nd Street, which was then known as 10 Mile Road. And I throw that in because I love it. This is one of his few painted within the city of Omaha. And you can see the original right below. He lived a few blocks away from Memorial Park. This was a commission for a country club, and he just loved Nebraska cornfields. One of Omaha's cornfield paintings that has a special place in my heart is a mural he painted on 2 walls of the stairway of his own house near Elmwood Park. After the Kingmans lived in Omaha a few years, his wife was frustrated because their young daughters left fingerprints on the white wall going upstairs. Like a good muralist, he solved the problem by painting up the staircase, no more fingerprints. In 1987, 40 years and several owners later, my husband and I moved into that house where we still live. We weren't sure what this incredible painting was, but the first thing we said to our very young children, don't put your fingers on this painting. This is the upper view of the stairway mural, and I love that the fence post that goes up on the right is actually painted into the light switch plate. Oh. And Kenneth May mentioned when I did this yesterday afternoon, he was probably inspired by the Grant Wood mural over at the, what was the hotel in Council Bluffs? Chieftain, thank you. I always want to call it Colonial. Yeah. So, that's my favorite part. Eugene Kingman had a huge impact on the arts. He was a leader not just in this community, but in the world of arts, and he was respected across the country. In 1954, he was asked to write an article for American Heritage magazine, the Painters of the Plains, detailing early Western painters and their influence on American art. The first traveling exhibition ever to leave Egypt with a large number of artifacts of King Tutankhamun included the Joslin Art Museum in Omaha, where the exhibit spent the full month of May of 1962. In 1968, Creighton University gave him an honorary doctorate, saying the cultural face of Omaha has changed dramatically in the past 2 decades, and one of the motivating forces in that change has been Eugene Kingman. Eugene Kingman was a Renaissance man, a man who understood and appreciated history and wanted to preserve Nebraska's artifacts. What we receive from Gene Kingman is still at the Joslin Art Museum. It's scattered at history museums across the area. It's in paintings which still hang in homes around the region, and now a highlight of that legacy is the mural at the Dale Clark Library downtown. There is a website if you'd like to know more about Eugene Kingman and his work. His family's created a website at www.eugenekingman.com. And I love talking about Eugene Kingman, so if you ever need a speaker. And are there any questions?